first off, we can set those a little bit to the side. Let's start off with pouring the amount of paint that we want into our cups. So the amount of paint is going to be determined by how much paint you actually need for the specific canvas. And each canvas size is going to, differ for how much paint you need. But if you don't need a whole lot, you probably barely need to cover the bottom of it. For this black, I'm gonna be able to go almost to the top of probably to about this line with this much paint. I stretch my paint pretty thin because, well, paint's kind of expensive these days, isn't it? My white and black paint are $16.99 right now. It's lovely, absolutely lovely. I'm going to do 2 different cups of blue. And then I'm going to add white to one, and I'm going to add a touch of black to the other. I might need to add more white once we start stirring, but I'm not sure how white I want or how light I want to make the blue. But the black, I really just want to do a touch of it. Black paint goes a long way. And I'm going to pour this coral into a cup and see if we need to modify the color at all. And whatever I don't use, I can put back into my container. And I do want to use some white. I'll put it in a cup as well, because again, I reuse these, so the fact that I'm putting it in a cup doesn't really hinder me at all. I mean, it's just an extra cup to wash, which I don't mind. Now let's add our water first. So instead of pouring from, a massive cup like this, I like getting an extra little cup, separating it out, and I don't know how much it is. It's about right here for the black. And that was probably a little too much, but it'll be fine. But it's really just a touch, especially for the small amount of paint. You can always measure out to get exactly the amount you want every single time. I like eyeballing it because it feels more organic and it feels, it feels more of a creative flow, I guess you could say. And I also put Floetrol in, which is a paint pouring medium, and I don't measure this out either. But after a certain period of time doing this, like, I don't need to measure out. I never have issues with my paint, ever. And if I do, I'll add more Floetrol, or I'll add more water, or I'll add more paint. It can always be fixed. Just depends on how much product you're willing to use to fix it. I might need more of that. I put a lot of black in that accidentally. I'm gonna add a little bit of this, get it a little more thick than it is. Put the Floetrol away. Dirty up some of these popsicle sticks. that black went everywhere at first, so my cup's spinning like crazy. I might need to add a little more water to that cashew color. I didn't think I needed to, but it looks like I'm going to. Oh yeah, those two differences. When I added the black to that blue, I really like that. I'm trying to decide if I want to add more white to this blue though. Can't decide. Let's see. Do I like that coral? I believe I do. I think it's quite nice. And as far as stirring your paint goes, I'd recommend stirring each one for at least 30 seconds minimum. You really want to make sure you get all of the ingredients in there mixed together. Yeah. So I'm picking it up and it's flowing okay, but I really feel like it needs a little bit more water. So barely any. Let's see what that does. Loosen it up a little bit. You definitely want to get a good stir in with any of your cups that are pretty full. You want to make sure there's a decent amount of stirring going on. Put them in your extra container of water so that you can wash them off later, so you're not, wasting good popsicle sticks every single time. I reuse these, I don't know, 50 times maybe, even more. Like I still have a batch in my sink right now that are still usable. I just haven't washed them yet and they weren't ready for tonight. So I decided to bust out a new set. Let's put a little more white with this blue. Yeah. That's cool. I'm happy with that. So that's how I mix most of my paints. I use a little bit of water, a decent amount of Floetrol, and an understandable amount of paint. I suggest playing around with it, figuring out how thick you want your paint or how watery you want your paint. Some people literally just paint with water and acrylic paint. You have to use a lot of paint to do that, but it comes out looking really good. I just don't want to go through bottles and bottles of paint, so I use the Floetrol to help spread that paint, versus having to fill up my cup way more full of paint than I, need to. Maybe eventually I'll get to just using water, but for right now, that's how I mix my paint, and it works out really well for me. Hit that like button, subscribe, and join me in the next video and watch me pour on this canvas.